mentioned the three major components within the electrical system on a car. Right here, we have an alternator. We have off of a BMW. We have a starter motor off of a BMW as well. And this is a car battery. What the alternator does, the alternator is the energy device that creates electricity driven off of the belt of the engine, off of the crankshaft, and it puts energy into this device, which is the battery. The battery then stores the energy, and the car uses the stored energy for whatever it needs to. If you want to charge your phone, if you want to turn your headlights on, if the radiator fan comes on, whatever any of that's for. The starter motor is simply, with this gear right here, spin the flywheel of the engine to get the engine to start. That's why they call this a starter. So let's have some fun today and take this thing apart and see what's inside it. Okay, so now that we have the starter motor all taken apart, let's see how the starter motor works and what's inside it. So the first thing that happens when you give a command to start the car, what you're doing is you're sending a signal to this solenoid, and you're saying, hey, apply power across these two terminals, right? So when that happens, the solenoid energizes, and what it does, it's got a big spring inside there. It is pushing within this house, inside this aluminum housing. When this plunges, there's just a magnet in here. When that plunges, it plunges this gear in or out. Okay, that's what pushes the starter motor into the ring gear. Then we need this to turn. So how do we get this to turn with enough force to turn over a 4-cylinder engine, a 6-cylinder, an 8-cylinder, 12? This specific starter motor is designed to spin up a 6-cylinder up to 200 RPM. That comes into play with this armature right here, goes inside there, with also these gears. So there's like a planetary gear reduction drive here. There's 3 gears, and then we have this armature right here. And this motor mechanism spins this outer gear. So this gets pushed out. This gear gets pushed out by the solenoid. Then this thing starts spinning, and you can see the gear reduction happening. So see those planetaries inside there? See those planetary gears spinning? And then this thing's spinning really super fast. And then look what it's doing out here. It's spinning it's just like a bike chain, like changing the gears on a bicycle chain, right? So it's not a direct drive. And then when it's done spinning, this pulls back in, and then it's just stationary. Now the ring gear is just moving by here as fast as the engine's going. When you request to start it again, this pushes out, and then this guy just spins. Back here, you have the brush pack that goes around the commutator. So this sits inside here, and this is what's delivering the current across the commutator bars of the armature. So there's your brushes right there. All this goes inside this starter body, just like this. So here's the starter, just an empty body. There are magnets, there are permanent magnets on the inside of this. That is what is delivering the power across to spin this. But that is a starter motor explained from the solenoid, from the request for the vehicle owner to start it. The vehicle owner says, start the car with whatever, by any means, a push button, a key crank, however you do it. It says, give this thing power. And when you give this thing power, all this other stuff comes into play. It spins this thing up. So that's what the battery's for. The battery is storing all that energy to give enough energy to spin all this stuff up. So that's a starter. Now we can move into the charging system. So here's the charging system of the car. And over here you have a pulley, and one of the serpentine belts wraps around this pulley and spins off of the engine speed. And you can see that thing spinning inside there. And we have a really cool video on our YouTube channel of a serpentine belt actually getting sucked into a front crank seal. And then what's happening on the backside over here? Okay, so over here, we have a charging circuit. So this large lug right here goes out to the battery, and this, with a large cable, goes to the battery, and the energy that is being produced from this generator alternator is gonna go out to the battery and then be stored inside the battery. Here, there's some smaller terminal connectors, and this is the brains coming from the computer system of the car. This is the charge strategy. So this is telling the alternator how much current to load up inside this housing to then know how much current is going to go into the battery and hold in the battery. So we'll take this apart next. So this is now the inside of the alternator. You can see this has similar controls to what our starter motor has. Here's the voltage regulator, and here is that charging lug with the diode set of the back of the alternator. And then here is our spinning alternator right here. This is turning out current that is conducting electricity from this magnet to this magnet over here. It is creating electricity, and it is being charged back into the battery of the car. And then other things get to use the electricity that this makes, like charging your cell phone or starting your engine. So these two things are kind of similar, right? They both spin rotating magnets is their job. You can kind of see, like, once you take all these things apart, this is much larger than all this, right, over here with the starter motor. But once you take all this stuff apart, you can kind of make like an electricity soup of stuff, right? So it's like, you know, which piece went where? Does this look similar, this alternator looks similar to the starter? It all looks similar. It's just one's bigger and one's smaller. So that's all they are. They're just motors and alternators. They're really all the same thing at the end of the day. But there is the alternator starter soup right here. So that concludes this series of opening these parts. If you want to see other parts that you want to see opened, just drop us a line and say, hey, what does the inside of a water pump look like? Or what does the inside of an engine look like? Or what does the inside of anything look like? And as long as it's automotive, I can find it, cut it open, and show you.